What is up, all? Andy and Beggy here from the Residents of Evil. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome to the Residents of Evil podcast, sponsored by G Fuel. My guest at this time, you know him as Ramon Salazar. Marcio Moreno, how are you doing, sir?
Hello, guys. I'm doing excellent. Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here.
How's life been, man? I mean, it's been, what, 3 months since Resident Evil 4 dropped? How's it been kind of integrating with the community and stuff like that?
It's been interesting. Definitely different from before. I never expected the game to be this big, and for the fans and people in general to be so welcoming and all the nice messages and just being part of this big franchise and this huge game. I'm blown away. I never expected this, and so it's been wild.
I'll tell you what we'll do, Marcio. Are you right to refresh again? Because I think your mic's gone crispy where I did that transition. So you're right to just quickly refresh.
Sure, I can do that.
Yeah,
I'll be right back, guys.
Cheers. Now, thank you to everybody who's tuned in so far. As I said, we've got Marcio Moreno in, who is the voice actor for Ramon Salazar. Beggy, I know you're excited. What are your initial thoughts meeting the man?
Oh, there's so much to ask him. I mean, my thoughts have been on Salazar, Mendez, all of the villain characters I take a very strong interest in, regardless of the entry, really. So, and from what I understand, he also has a role with the Verdugos, Gigantes, so many of the other villainous roles. So it's like hitting the jackpot, getting this guy on a podcast. It's really great. So, got a full house here.
I know. I can't wait. Sorry about that, Marcio. Are you back in the room? Oh, I think he might be having a couple of microphone issues. Give him a second. Not yet. Not yet, no. Yeah, that's right. Just bear us a moment, guys. He's having a couple of technical difficulties here. But sorry, Beggy, you were saying.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just saying full house here. We got Betsy, we got Seth, we got Sister A.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there we go. There's some chat himself. Thank you.
Awesome.
Apologies for that, my friend. You were saying about the Resident Evil community, and you didn't realise it was quite as big as it was. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, I played a little bit of Resident Evil, the original Resident Evil 2, and that's as far as Resident Evil game goes, is what I played. And I didn't play the whole game because I got too scared, I have to be honest. I'm a bit of a chicken with horror survival. And that was it. And then the movies, the movies franchise were huge. And then that's it. I don't know. I just never crossed my mind that this game, in particular the number 4, was so big and so loved by the fans. And the original is this amazing game, and then the remake, it blew me away. So just being part of that is like mind blowing for me as an actor, where I am in my career. Just being part of this game was a blessing. I didn't see it coming, and it turned out to be this huge thing globally. Like I've been getting messages, amazing messages from like all over the world. And it literally, not even in my wildest dreams, crossed my mind that this will happen out of doing this game.
And I think that's the real beauty of Resident Evil, is that, even in my streams, I have people from like Congo, I have people from Morocco, I have people from Brazil. Like, it's such an international brand. And I don't even think that Capcom back in the day realized of what a phenomenon Resident Evil was going to be, really. I mean, it transcends languages, countries. It's crazy, in my opinion. So you've had overall a pretty positive experience in the community?
Yeah, so far so good. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Yeah.
So going to how did this happen? How did you end up being not only a really iconic character from Resident Evil 4, but getting involved with this process? Was you a voice actor originally, or was you just doing short films and on the acting circuit?
Voice wise, I did a few things, nothing major. Like I did a lot of background players for like FIFA 2018. I did like some dubbing for like Japanese series, and I've done some voice stuff, but it's not my main thing until I ended up doing this comic adaptation that is coming out this year. I did this with the U.S. and Mexico. We did it in Mexico. It's called Gasolina comic book, and that's gonna be out this year, guys. We did 12 episodes, and that's when I really dived into voice work. And then I ended up getting this, so that just kind of like got together, and it just worked out. It gave me the confidence and just feel comfortable doing voice work. And about what you said, how I got into this. So I got an audition from my agent for a game. I'm sure everyone's telling you the same thing. We didn't know what it was. So I get this audition, and it was for literally one of the ganados attacking Leon, which in the audition didn't say Leon. They changed all the names. And it was that scene where he goes in the house and the guy is by the fire, and then he turns around and attacks him with, I think it's a torch and a fork. Well, that was me. So on the audition, I typed it right there. I had a cutting board, and it says this guy was chopping something. So I figured must be some chicken or something. So I had my cutting board. I'm chopping. I turned around, and I literally went all out, like yelling. I had a machete, like a real one, and I went all out. I get the. I even put blood on my apron, like I was nuts. I went out, and I get the call back, and I go to the studio and I meet Steve Nibley, our director, which is an amazing director. I love the guy. If you're watching this, Steve, you rock. Thank you for bringing me on.
We have heard good thoughts about Steve from Nick and others, so I know he's well esteemed.
Yeah. So I go into the callback, I do the thing, and then that was it. I go home, and then my agent says, "Oh, they want you to send a video of you speaking with a Spanish accent from Spain, Castilian accent." I'm like, okay, but something random, about a minute or two. So I remember messaging my brother who lives in Spain, and I sent him my lines, and I said, "Can you ask your girlfriend to record the lines for me so I can remind myself about the accent?" Because I lived in Spain 5 years when I was 20. So it kind of worked out. I sent the video, and they bought it. Apparently, later on, they said, "Man, my accent was spot on." So that was it. I went into the studio and we shot this with a different actor, and I didn't know this, but this actually was a demo that we did for Capcom in Vancouver. And they said if it gets picked up, then they're gonna do the game. So I did this demo, and it was just this Ganado guy, and I forgot about it. 3 months later, I get an email for an audition. And back then I knew that it was Resident Evil, but I never played it Resident Evil 4. So I get the audition. Again, they changed the names, and it was for Louis. So I auditioned for Louis. So I go in, I see Steve again. I'm doing the audition for Louis. And, sorry. So as I'm prepping for Louis, 2 days before the callback, they sent me an audition for Ramon. But it said Fausto. They didn't say it was Ramon. And literally, the only thing they said was unusually small stature, Castilian from an old castle, and because I wasn't familiar with the game, I didn't put 2 and 2 together. So I'm like, okay, and it was like a huge audition. So I go in, I do Luis, and then I do Ramon. And as I'm working Ramon's audition, Steve is telling me, "Oh, can you go with your voice a little down, a little higher?" Yeah, I can work with that. That's all he said. And then I left. And that was it. I go home, and that was the end of it. Then they tell me that I booked Ramon. I didn't know until I saw the contract. They said Ramon in the name, and then I figured it out. Who is this Ramon guy? So I go online on YouTube and I research, and I panicked, literally panicked, because the original actor did such an iconic job. It's amazing. And I was like, how can I top that up? Not even top it up. How can I come after this guy, and try to do something compelling and interesting that people are gonna watch and say, "Oh yeah, that's unique. That is good." So it was really scary and challenging.
Yeah, I think what we'll do is I do want to pick up on that, but are you right to try a different browser? Is that okay? Like a different web browser or your phone or something like that, if that works better. You can open the link on your phone. Because I want to make sure this is captured extremely clear, because you have a very interesting story to tell.
Okay. Yeah, let me close this and I'll try a different browser. Sorry, guys.
Yes, right. It's one of them.
All right, I'll
It's
be
all
right
good.
back.
All right, thank you. Listen, I think Marcio is going to be an extremely open book here, which is really good to see, and it's good to see voice actors again embracing the community and making things like this possible.
Yeah, it's really it's a great opportunity, and we don't get it all the time, so better get this going well. And what he said, I have such a good follow-up to it as well, so I'm kind of like hanging on to that thought.
Yeah, when it happened, I was like, I really want to hear this. I really want to hear this, but we just need to get this sorted. People need to hear the story.
The timing of this technical difficulty, it's like SpongeBob putting his hand into the vending machine and the bus coming in the rock bottom episode. I swear. It's like that. It's like as soon as we get to like the juicy stuff, the mic decides to act up a little.
Indeed.
So funny.
If you've just tuned in, guys, we have Marcio Moreno, the voice actor for Ramon Salazar. He's having a couple of technical difficulties. We're hoping he can iron them out shortly. I think he's back in. Let's try it. Nothing come through yet. There's nothing better than live. Try your phone if not. Try your phone if not. Sorry, Beggy, you were saying?
Oh no, that was pretty much it. Just making that analogy with the microphone.
I really want to get like the kind of the inspiration, like from where the script was and the couple of lines he did, to really developing that character. That's what we really want to nail today.
Oh yeah, we're right about to get there. Feel.
Oh, we got double vision Marcio. What's going on here? There we go. Who's that handsome fella?
Okay, hold on a second. How can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah. Crystal, my friend, Crystal.
I'm just gonna place that here, and before we do anything, I want to make sure my phone is not gonna die on me. This was totally unexpected, so I'm gonna have to plug it in.
Okay.
Yes, it's all good. It's all good.
We're doing it. It's happening. The save. The second.
We'll do it live. We'll do it live. Again, thank you to everyone who submitted questions. The row members, thank you very much for submitting the questions. We're going to do the podcast. We'll go through kind of the journey of Marcio, and then we'll definitely address them questions if they've not been addressed, obviously during the podcast. So thanks for holding in with us there. It is really appreciated.
Okay. I think we are good.
Awesome.
Actually, but before we go ahead, you have to show. I'll blow this up on big screen as well. You have to show the gang the shirt. Please show the shirt off. Let me blow this up.
Are you ready?
An Ace Ventura Scarface. I love it. Love it. Thank you for that. Okay, so you've auditioned for what you now know as Resident Evil 4. Do you have a date of when that was, roughly? Just to put this in context.
Over 3 years ago for the demo. Over 3 years ago, for sure. Long time ago.
So that would have been like the height of the pandemic. And were you local?
I don't even think it was
Vancouver?
The pandemic yet, to be honest.
Really? That long ago?
Yeah, I think it was starting. Because the whole thing blew up when I actually went to do the actual game, is when it was tricky and everything. But when I did the demo, I don't remember being at this whole COVID thing. I will remember, and I don't. So I think it was pretty mellow back then.
which is crazy because that is a very, very long time ago that they've kept hold of you, really. And were you based local to Vancouver? Like, where have you traveled to and from?
So I grew up in Argentina, and then I moved to Spain. And now that I think about it, it's hilarious. This is totally out of context, but I lived in Spain 5 years, and then I land this game that is based in Spain. So I'm like, maybe it was meant to be. I needed to go to Spain because I was going to be Ramon. And then I came to Vancouver. I went to school here, and then I think it's now almost 14 years here.
So you've secured the role. Actually, that's a good point. Just before we jump into kind of the inspirations behind Salazar, how you manage that, what can you, to the best of your knowledge, can you remember how they like pitched that script to you? That let's call it the demo script, right? Like, did they just say you are a crazy man and you are running another crazy man whilst you're like? How did they get that across to you that it was a Ganado without telling you it was a Ganado?
For what I remember, really, really vague, and it was this kind of like a ghost town where this cop shows up looking for someone, and I'm this guy I'm not all there, and I'm literally just in my house, and for some reason I attacked this cop because I don't like him. That was pretty much it. I had no clue, and as I said, never played Resident Evil 4. I didn't even put anything together. Like, I had no idea. So it was
it's really that's so fascinating in hindsight that you were able to get some samples from, I believe you said it was your brother's girlfriend?
Yeah.
About the Castilian Spanish accent, because I think it's really crucial in these games like Resident Evil Village and especially Resident Evil 4, to absolutely establish an aura, an atmosphere of folk horror. And folk horror is all about cultural alienation. It's all about taking the cop and putting him somewhere he doesn't belong, depriving him of familiarity and upping that sort of cultural alienation. The accent, the language barrier, all of that is really crucial. And I think that amount of care and detail, that amount of nuance is like really necessary. So it's really hard to verbalize how much of an impact just that little step that you took actually made on the finished project. Because
I think
when I actually, oh, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I think it just made the difference, to be honest. That was the one thing that, not only because I went for it like 100% with craziness and energy and just being bigger than life, but they were really keen on the accent. They made me do like, I don't know how many videos. It got comical because my agent was laughing at the end. Oh my God, they want another video now of you talking about a barbecue. I don't know, something random with the accent. So they were really keen on the actors need to nail the accent. And then when I got the role, they told me that the people they hired to listen to the tapes, they thought that I was from Spain. You couldn't tell that I wasn't a native from Spain. So I did a good job, I guess.
That's amazing. That authenticity, for example, Swedish accents, Swedish actors in movies like Midsummer, movies that continue the folk horror legacy, movies like The Wicker Man from 1973, and having the Scottish tone, the Scottish ghost stories, Scottish sort of portrayal of older gods and deities. It's kind of like a similar tone that lives on through video games. And the biggest front runner in video games of folk horror is Resident Evil 4, and I've always seen it that way. So to see it mastered in this fashion and brought into the remake with even more compelling, more disturbing, erratic voices, I think that is like one of the biggest selling points of this title for me. And I think it's incredible, like the impact that you've had. It's like really hard to grasp.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. The moment, the one thing it got to me, people ask me, hey, you've done this game. Can you tell me, like, how was it when the actors and the main thing I tell them is, like, I was in a room listening to all these people's talk and every unique voice. I remember the one that really stuck with me was Sadler. Thomas. Man, his voice was so unique to me, at least in my ear, that it was like creepy and scary, and it just stuck with me. And yeah, it's and I can see how it's the same way for everyone playing the game. You know, it's all about senses, you know, what you're seeing, but also when you're hearing, you know, and the accent and the sound of your voice is huge to make a game work.
I would like to kind of double down on that as well. Give you absolutely the credit you deserve, but also credit to Capcom, because back on the original Resident Evil 4, they caught a lot of flack because it was obviously set in Spain, but they used a different dialect. I believe it was like a Mexican dialect.
Yeah, it's on Mexican.
Yeah, so it ended up actually not staining the game. The game was fantastic, but it was kind of like, oh, it was nearly there, but you're kind of messing.
Yeah.
So credit to Capcom for actually thinking on their feet this time and getting you to perform in a Spanish accent, like a traditional Castilian Spanish accent.
Exactly. No, and I think that's why they just didn't want to make the same mistake, because if you go online and you search, that's a huge complaint from game and you know, people that love the franchise and the game. They just hated the fact that why would you have someone from Mexico pretend to be from Spain? It's like if you brought someone from here pretending to be British but speaking like Canadian. You know what I mean? It's like why you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think they did a great job this time.
So let's move on to actual Salazar now. So you've got you've submitted the demo, you waited your 3 months, you got the callback, right? Now you're in the role as Salazar. How do you prepare from that point on? How do you prepare to be Salazar?
I mean, you got the role. I was at home, and I get my say they book you for this Fausto guy, and then I see the contract and it says Salazar, and I'm like, what? So I go online, I research this Ramon Salazar, and I'm telling you, I was sitting there, but my soul left my body, and I'm watching this whole thing, and I'm panicking because I'm like, oh my God, look, listen to this guy, listen to this voice, Rene Mujica, like he just killed it. And I'm like, how do I do this? And the funny thing is Steve, you know, during the audition, he said, I can work with this. So I guess at some point I hit one of the notes that he's like, oh yeah, that's where he lives. But I don't know what it was. And this is like months and months later. So I'm here at home trying to prep for it. And I'm thinking, what do I do? Where exactly was that he liked it? So what do? I started watching all these videos about the original actor and listen to the voice. But again, as an actor, I don't want to be copying someone because I want to do my own thing, right? So I'm trying to like, what can I take it and make it unique? And you know, not to copy it in a sense, but it's more to stay true to the original, to the essence of the character. So what can I get from that and make it my own? So I started playing with my voice, right? So I would go up and down, and man, I spent hours and hours with my phone. I recorded and listened to it. No, it doesn't work. Record and listen, and eventually I figured it out. Okay, when he's upset and angry, he will go deeper. When he's having fun, he will go up. And then it was a lot of work with the lines, but I thought I had it. And to be honest, it was very close to the original in a way of the voice will go up and down. So I go into the studio, and I remember walking in, and I see Nick, you know, Leon and Ashley, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm actually doing this. I see the they built when I'm the first scene where we meet. So I'm upstairs, and they built this whole rail so I can put my, and I'm kind of panicking, man. I'm about to go, and I see he's done this a million times, and I'm trying to like prep to do my thing, and in inside I'm thinking, what do I do? Like I don't know what they want, and I just, you know, typical as an actor, I'm like, do your thing, man. Just do your thing. So I just did, and I remember doing the first take, and you know, I look at Steve, kind of like, you know, validation, and I'm Steve's, yeah, I like that, and that was it. He told me, yeah, we don't want it to be like the original. Do your own thing. And yeah, I like what you're doing. And that was it. That was pretty much the whole process to that point.
That's really fascinating because I always sort of structured Salazar's lines and his pitches that he actually like traverses as he's actually moving throughout his wide array of emotions. And I always see it as sort of like two different energies clashing. One is that much more playful, wanting to entertain and have fun and play with his food, where he's much more chirpy and playful. He's very theatric, very dramatic, right? Sort of clashing against a more an inner tormented child, someone who is still bearing those adolescent traumas and they're starting to bleed out of him. That's more darker, deeper in tone, and it is much more scathing and cutting. And you hear it even in his introduction when you're working with Nick and Genevieve, when you're like meeting the Leon for the first time. And you're saying, "You will comply, yes?" And you start to hear that little bit of edge from the second voice, and that is just so powerful because it lets you in on the duality of the character, just a hint to it of it so early on, and then later you see that more fully manifested in his various, sort of voice over the intercom, various moments of sort of puppeteering Leon and Ashley through these set pieces. But I always wondered if you structured it in a similar way of seeing it as the clash of those two sort of adult and child personalities.
Yeah, interesting. I that, but as I said before, when I was prepping the voice, I figured out when the voice should change. But then once I scenes and I realized what the scenes are about is when, and I'm like, okay, so I'm meeting these guys. I want to be a little friendly, a little threatening, but not too much that I want to give everything away. And the more the game goes on and the scene goes on, yes, I start teasing them more. I start making fun of them. The intercom one is totally a different sound and delivery from the first scene, and then it's totally different from the next one when I'm starting to get a little more frustrated, and the kid is starting to disappear, and the evil starts to take over. And what are you doing here? And then when he shot me in the face, come on, bro, don't do that. And then
Mm.
yeah, I changed completely. So yeah, that's totally a thing that I totally went through that process.
Was this your first experience mocapping?
I did, because I went to Vancouver Film School, so they're very like they're next to Beyond. So a few times I went in there because they were testing a few things, so I had the suit on and that sort of stuff. But I never anything like this. So I will say it was pretty much.
Do you feel
Wearing those
you have to
sexy
like overact in it? Not overact, but kind of what's the word I'm looking for, Beggy? Where like you almost
bigger than
Be
life.
overly expressive with
yeah,
your
overly expressive. That's the term.
I mean, it's a game, right? So it's a little different from doing your film and TV, but it's a lot about your voice. So what I learned about voice work is because I mean, although they can't see me now because the technology, you have the camera in your face, so they can actually see my expressions and what I'm thinking. But at the same time, I always try to think of it as if no one can see me, and I have to be able to express what I'm feeling through my voice. So once I do that, then I get a lot more out of my voice, and then with my face, now that you can show that, then it helps quite a bit. I'm
I
not
was
sure if
gonna
I answered that question.
Yeah, no, that's
mhm.
cool.
I was gonna ask about, so you're talking about this, sort of fake name for Salazar before you find out what the actual role is for, and a little bit of, script to guide you, and I was wondering if there was anything similar for characters like Los Gigantes, Verdugos, Ganados that you're sort of, um, used to build your conception of that character and how you should voice him.
No, actually, for those, it was very much on the spot. I think it got to the
Okay.
point where I got so comfortable with what we were. They really liked my expression on my face. They were like, "Man, you have a unique face. Your teeth and fat. You go crazy. We want to use this." So literally, they would show me a clip of. I remember at first they would show us a clip of the Ganados and some of those characters, how they walk. So basically, it will be a clip Ganado walking, Ganado attacking, Ganado standing. So you will see all the movements. So then we'll practice them, and then we'll just go and do them. It was a lot of rehearsing movements and that sort of stuff. It was a lot of just grounding and like just being angry and like just really go for it. And a lot of the times I don't even know what I did. In the moment, they will show me the clip on the thing. So this is it, Marcio. Okay, now you're gonna do the gigantes. I did the 2 gigantes. And the funny thing is, it was one day where it was almost at the end of it, and they were like, "Can you do gigante?" I did Dr. Salvador, how he does the whole movement and everything. But eventually, I'm like, we're live with Japan, and they were like asking Steve something, and then eventually Steve comes to me and says, "Hey, they want you to give it a go to the sisters," and I'm like, "What?" Like the female sisters, and I'm like,
Wow.
"Yeah."
Okay.
Wait,
I'm not even familiar.
So breaking news. Hang on, you mocapped for the Bella sisters.
I don't know if they used what I did, but there was a moment where they wanted me to like do facials for them, and then the noises, that, and they were like, "Do you want to give it a go?" Never seen them in the game. I saw a clip. There's obviously not a product. I can see kind of like what they look like, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, those two." I'm like, "Yep." Can you like? They're gonna go when they come through the wall, right? It's gonna be through the wall. First, you're gonna do her, and then her, and I'm like, "Okay," but I have no clue what to do. And I literally was just my instinct kicked it, and they were like, "Okay, we're rolling," and I don't know what I did, but they cut, and everyone is quiet, and then I hear this laugh, and then Japan is like, "Marcy, they're saying that you actually identical," and I was like, "What?" So I don't even know if that made it or not, but I did.
So for clarity, you did the. If you could just round off some of the characters.
Yeah,
that
so
you
I
did
did
do.
Ramon, I did Dr. Salvador, I did the Gigante, I did the Little Gigante, I did Vertigos. What else? And I think that's it. The guy with the maybe I did the Garador as well. It was to the point where like I don't even know. It go funny because it was everyone is okay. Look at this. That's Marcio.
Man, Capcom really got their money's worth. They really got their money's worth of you.
Guess so.
That's a whole lot. You know, I was looking at your page, your IMDb, and I was seeing a lot of roles for thugs, crooks, goons, villainous characters, side villains, and we've had Craig Bernatowski on previously and sort of asked him a similar question about like, do you have any natural proclivity towards villainous roles or creating that kind of energy? And then the second part of the question is sort of, would you want to switch it up and be a hero for a change in any kind of role?
Right. Yeah, I love being the bad guy. It's fun. You know, I'm not a bad guy. I don't consider myself a bad guy. I hear that I'm pretty nice. But when I get this bad role, it's I don't know what happens. My mind just goes. And
It's your alter
it's
ego.
awesome to be able to be something so different from you. That's the beauty of acting. But I just have so much fun with it. And I guess that it just got down to the point where how to do it when it comes like my phone. I have a creepy smile. It's just like it just works. And I said, man, you just look creepy, but at the same time, I can also look nice. So it's like I've done a lot of that, and not only because of my look, but also because my ethnicity and Latinos. I'm sure you figured that out, my accent. But so I do a lot of those thugs, psychotic, rapists, like things that my mom loved watching, and you know, so I've done all of those, but I've done cops as well, and I would definitely like to transition a little bit. I love comedy, believe it or not. People don't believe I love comedy. I love doing comedy.
Okay.
I would say it was the shirt that gave it away.
Come again?
It was your shirt. It gave it away that you liked
Oh
comedy.
yeah, yeah. I love comedy and I love sci-fi. So I will a little bit more of that. Vancouver is huge for horror, and there's not much comedy going on here, so it's hard to get those roles. But when they come around, I try, if I get the opportunity to read, to do my best to, you know, just be me and be funny, have fun with them. But I have done a few but there is a movie coming out this year called VHS 85, and I'm not a bad guy in there. I'm a good guy.
Is it the follow-up to the previous
horror?
It's the franchise VHS. It's the new installment. It's based in the 80s, 85.
Wow.
It's coming out in October, I think.
It's gonna be good.
I guess, yeah, I can't spoil it too, but I'm not a bad guy. In there. So there you
Sounds
go.
So bringing it back round to Salazar, and we are definitely going to touch on where you want to go in the future for sure. But going back to Salazar, how long did your element of the works? How long did that take to do? What was it? 6 months? 3 months? Were they quite prompt about it? From what you remember, of course.
Well, the thing is of how Capcom works. We will show months, and then 3 months pretty much that we were meeting, and maybe in those 3 months, obviously be 3 months. It will be like a week of 2 of work, or 3 split in between those months, and then we won't see each other for 3 months, and that's a way for, I believe, Capcom to watch what we're doing, and if they like what they see, keep it, and if now you can reshoot instead of just shooting the whole thing and then find out that, oh, we don't like this. So that's why it took so long, right? It was like 3 years of seeing each other every 3 months, and yeah, I think it was at least 2.5 years that it took us to get the game done and to hang out with the guy. It was interesting because we didn't know each other, but we wouldn't see each other for 3 months, and then say, oh, hey, how's it going? We'll see each other again, and then eventually after years, you kind of like, you have to become friends. I mean, it's
against your
all right,
will.
bro, let's be friends, man, because this is like, I see you more than some of my friends, so it makes sense to be friends. And Nick was huge in that. By the way, me just before going live saying, tell them I say hi. So Nick,
I love Nick.
so yeah, he was the mastermind on the whole getting together and getting us all together, especially when we were done the game. He put together all the streaming, and then he's the barbecue master. He will come to town and just get everyone together, and we'll all hang out and have some food and maybe a couple drinks and have a good time.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's good. It's good you've had almost like a camaraderie almost.
Yeah.
Since shooting it, which is really wholesome.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, they're a great guy, awesome guy, Genevieve, Andre, like everyone. It's funny to me because everyone there's such unique characters on their own, and it's funny to me because we're doing a video game together, but it's like you are this character, but in real life you're this other character that is even more hilarious to me or crazier than in the game. Like everyone is so unique in a way that everyone is out there. John is a great singer, crazy tall guy, and he's the big cheese. You got Nick, super nice guy, and he's this huge Resident Evil star. Genevieve has been acting since she can walk. She's been acting with Robbie Williams. Like she's been around forever, and she's the sweetest girl, and she's back again. Andrea, another guy. Everyone. Like it's mind blowing. You know what I mean?
So now you've done this, do you have what is next for Marcio? Where do you go from here? Have you got any dream roles that you want to go after?
I would love to be in a super action film. I love war stuff. I love war films. So I would love to be. I like to be a soldier in a big blockbuster film. And I remember talking about this with somebody else, and I love action. I love sci-fi. So I don't know if you guys remember Kurt Russell film back in the 90s where he's a soldier, The Last Soldier. I didn't get the best reviews, but he's a soldier and he has to fight the super soldiers, and he's the anti-hero guy. I love those kind of roles, being a misunderstood kind of guy that everyone thinks he's a bad guy, but he's actually a good guy. So I would love doing that. I'm open to anything right now, and I'm also developing my own project, which is why I've been keeping super busy here, and I haven't really been putting much time into playing the because I'm trying to produce my own things as well. So I'm really working on a script and bringing things to life of mine, because I've heard, but there is a strike going on in LA right now. So things are not as busy as they usually are this time of year. I try to keep busy. I mean, thankfully, I've been busy this year, but it could be a little busier So I'm using this time wisely towards goals and achieve things that I want.
That's great. You know, I wonder if A Few Good Men would fall under the category of movies that you would.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. Yeah. I love those kind of movies. I mean, and I don't know a lot of war films here. And this is one thing I'm like, I would love to be in a Save It Private Ryan Part 2.
Okay.
Huh?
What about like voice acting roles? Is there any? I mean, it could be anime, it could be like video games. Is there any aspirations there?
I mean, I would love to be in more games. You know, I'd love to be in another Resident Evil. If I could, I would love it. Like, I would love to be part of another one. I love games. You know, like as I said, I do love horror games. I'm a little bit of a chicken. I got better over the years, but I play a lot of Call of Duty, Left 4 Dead. I love it. Portal, you know, and now I'm playing RE4. So I love games. I grew up with games. I would love to voice. If it's not mocap, just voicing, I would love to go, forward with my voice career.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you've done a spectacular. Would you say that this is basically your, I suppose, your flagship role? The pinnacle that you can almost use that as a launching pad to bigger roles? Would you say that's where you're at?
Why not? It technically doesn't really translate to film and TV, you know, because it's a video game. So even though it's amazing because it's Resident Evil, and who doesn't know Resident Evil? You know, their movies, everyone knows Resident Evil. So just having that under my belt is amazing. But a lot of people think it's like, oh, you're in Resident Evil. Which movie? Like, where can I watch it? I was like, oh, it's a video game. You know what I mean? I had to explain, what do you mean it's a video game? You do the voice? I'm like, yeah, I do the voice. I do the movement. I do the whole thing. And then once they watch it, they're blown away. I was like, oh my God, that's you? I'm like, yep. So I think it's the same when it goes to like casting directors. That of course, they're aware of video games and they're familiar. It's one of those things where, you know, for example, I'm trying to get work in video games, and what happens? They want to see footage. You know, want to see you, and I'm like, well, we don't have access to that, and that's the main thing I remember talking about with Nick, where I want to get more into games, and anytime that there's a game going on, they ask, and you can't say, I can't say, Ramon Salazar in the scene, because how do they know it's me? So then they want the footage behind the scene, which we're not allowed to have. So it's like it's a situation where like
you can't win.
You can't win. Yeah. So eventually you just need to audition and go through the whole process. Hope that they see whatever they need to see. So then once you're there, you can show them, I have experience doing mocap. I can do this. You know what I mean? Especially I'm super thankful with this game. You know, so much body work. There's so many different characters that I think I earned the right to say, hey, I'm pretty good at mocap. You know, I love to do this. So yeah, it's a tricky situation.
So would you say, I suppose stigma would be probably too strong a term, but would you definitely say there is something there which not prevents you from getting work as a traditional actor, but it definitely isn't as helpful as you would think?
I mean, the accent has always been a thing. At first, the accent, it was something that it was literally not getting me work. I just wasn't landing anything. And I remember casting directors messaging my agent and saying, hey, we love Marcio, but his accent is too thick. And we don't understand all the words that he's saying. So, for the studio, take the chances on this guy that first much, and second has a huge accent. Is like, yeah. And I'm talking about 10 years ago. But now the industry changed in a way that they want accent now. They want the Latino guy with the accent. They want the Italian. They want diversity, right? So having an accent is not a bad thing. But the smart thing, what you should be able to do is being able to put it on and take it off. You know what I mean? Being able to have an American accent, have your own accent, which is what I'm working towards right now. So Other than that, I think my main thing a lot of it is my look, because believe it or not, a lot of the time people tells me, you know, you just don't look Latino enough, and I'm like, what? But you don't look white enough, and because you know they compare me to like your typical Mexican farmer that you see in TV shows and stuff. And this is not me being, it's not a racist thing, because, you know, not
Yeah,
at
of
all.
course, of course.
It's a look thing that is unfortunately in the industry. It's like you speak Spanish or Mexican, doesn't matter where you're from. And I'm like, I love Mexico. My best friends are Mexican. I love Mexico. I spent so many, I've done so many projects that like I want to live there. Like Mexico is in my heart forever. You know what I mean? But it's like, I'm not Mexican, you know. It's, well, yeah, you're Latino, you're Mexican. So when it comes to looks, they're so like close. Like, you know, you're Latino. You look. So then they look at me as, well, you have green eyes, and you're not super dark. So they want this, either the extremes. You're very
Yeah.
Mexican, very Latino looking, or European. So I usually go more for like the European kind of look, and sometimes they'll send me the white kind of guy instead of the Latino, and then I have to prove that I like put my Mexican accent on, and we go from there. But it's yeah, it's like one of those things. It's my look. It's a lot about my look, and I know I have a unique face. I have a unique look, and it can be hard to pinpoint where can we put this guy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And recently I did this commercial that, you know, when I started acting, first thing you do is commercials, right? And I remember going through all these commercials, and I'm sure me put me on hold, pen, you name it, and I never booked one. And then I figured it has to be my look. You have a particular look, it has to work for whatever they're looking for, and it never did. It got to the point where I got so upset with commercials that I don't like ones anymore. Once I started booking principal work, and I never did again. And eventually, now I think it was like, I don't know, the new year, and I was like, you know what, let's give it a go. Things are slow, it's great cash. I'll do some commercials, and ended up getting one. But I got older, maybe I look more like a man now. I got my grade coming in, and it just kind of worked. And I just landed that, right? But I have friends that they book commercials all the time. They're like, and they have the look, and you look at them and say, of course you're booking commercials. Look at you, you're gorgeous. And then you got the weird looking guys like us. And I'm like, whoa, can we put this guy in this commercial? People are gonna be afraid of eating this pasta if this guy is, you know what I mean? So I'm in a tricky spot. I believe I'm in a tricky spot, and I have to earn my place there a little bit more, just because I'm a minority, I'm Latino, I have a different look. So, you know, at the time people are like, oh, you're lucky now, you're a minority, you're Latino, you're gonna cast you more instead of us. We're one of us, they don't want us now. And I'm like, I don't think it, dude, like, welcome to my world, you know. Like, it's been like that for the last 20, 30, 40 years. Finally it's changed a bit where we all get an opportunity. So, you know, you gotta do, you know, I did. There were years and years and years where I didn't book a thing, and I was very close to throw the towel and say, maybe I'm not good enough. But then anytime, I remember there were 2 times that I was like, maybe this is just not gonna happen for me. And then I would get that little role, that cup roll number 27. You know what I mean? I was all right, I'll stay in it. And then I'm glad I did, because here I am, and it's been better and better and better every year. So
Yeah, that's great. That sounds a bit frustrating. Very rigid ideas of what people of actors of a certain ethnic background should convey, something that they should immediately, unquestionably be to someone who's never seen them before. You know, any in between that's like a little bit of ambiguity in terms of background, what they should convey for the sake of the show is undesirable. It sounds like really exasperating.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
You were saying it's getting better. Were you summarizing kind of like the last 10 years, should we say? Like, for example, say if you go to like LA or somewhere like that, is that going to be a lot better for you than, say, where you are now?
No, I think it's still, I mean, there's a lot of in LA, and the advantage is that there's not a ton here. Right? There's not obviously, if there is 10 Latino actors in LA, there is 3 here, kind of like that number. So to book thing as Latino here, I don't want to say it's easier because there is a lot of talented people here. You still have to compete, and you still have to compete against the US because they're still taping for here, right? And a lot of the times they rather bring someone from there because they're from LA, they're from the States, so meaning that they're probably better actors. So they'll bring Americans, and then we'll get the smaller roles. So we have to deal with that as well. But there is a lot of opportunities here now. The industry here is growing a lot, and I think it's gonna be the next main Hollywood here. I mean, it's almost there.
What you saying? What, Vancouver specifically?
Yes, Vancouver.
That's fascinating. I wouldn't have thought that would be a hustling and bustling. Can you give us a bit of an insight as to what is going on in that part of the world?
I mean, usually any time of the year, you look at the breakdowns, and there is at least 80, 100 productions for like TV shows. Whatever show that is on TV, they shoot it here. It's a name, it's LA. But it's say here because the tax is cheaper. It's a lot easier for them to shoot here. So they come and shoot everything here, right? And people don't even know. And even myself, I'll look back and look films from the 90s. I'm like, it was actually a couple of days ago, I'm talking to a buddy about Jean-Claude Van Damme. I grew up with this guy. I don't know how the conversation came up, but remember that movie Time Cop, where he travels in time? There's a scene where the first time he travels, and then he's on this phone booth calling who knows who. The phone booth is in the corner right there. And I mean it a couple of years ago, and they just got rid of it. And the corner store in the movie store where I go to buy stuff, and I was like, oh my god. And movies like that, Scream, and a bunch of these movies, yeah, everything is shot here. So there's a lot of work here. It's a good place to be, and it's just easier for you to be here and get a permit to work in the States, rather than it's more difficult for Americans to come here and work, because from here over there they'll do it for you, but from there here they won't. So we have an advantage there.
So if you and again, feel free to pass on a question, but how easy was it? Because obviously, I take it you're not a native from Vancouver. How easy was it for you to get set up in that regard? Because you seem like quite a traveler almost. You go from place to place.
I mean, I've been here for almost 14 years now. My dream was always growing up being the next Antonio Banderas, right? And I remember being back home and watching his movies, and I'm like, man, this guy's badass. I want to be like him. But the one actor that really made me want to be an actor, it was Bruce Willis. You're gonna be what? It was Bruce Willis, Die Hard, #1. And I was like, man, this guy is so cool. He's saving the day. I want to do that. I always wanted to be a cop and be in the army or be an astronaut. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna be an actor. I can do any of those. And that's how it started. My dream was going to the US, but then I ended up going to Europe just because a buddy of mine was living there. And I figured, you know what? I'll go to Spain, hang out there, and then I'll make my way there. But then when I go to Spain, I realized this is harder than it looked. I didn't have papers. I was a tourist. I'm illegal. Hopefully this is not going to come back to me now. But anyway, I was illegal for 4 years. And long story short, I ended up getting my papers there. And then I did theater there for a bit. And I met people from Vancouver. And they were the one that suggested, hey, man, you know what? There's one in Vancouver. It's going to be huge. And I'm talking about 14 years ago. You should check it out. And I ended up coming to Vancouver, and I went to school, and then I just stayed here because it was easier. I had the papers and everything, and then just wanted to go to LA. You got your visa. It's a lot more stuff that you need just to be able to, So I ended up here. And recently, I've been traveling quite a bit. Just that's because I've been booking gigs. I did 2 or 3 last year in Mexico. I just did at the beginning of the year a movie in Colombia. Now we're just in Calgary for another thing. So it's like that's the perks of this, a job. That if you're lucky enough, bro, where you gotta travel, I'm like, my God, I'm like, you just feel like, yes, this is the life, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's a good point, actually. So you say you was originally from Argentina, was it?
Yeah, I grew up in Argentina. Yeah.
What was it like then? And please explain, the I suppose the dialect differences when you were playing a Salazar, which is this Castellan, this Castellan Spanish. Explain to us kind of the different dialects and how you achieve that quite easily.
Yeah, so they're totally different. It's like if you have it in a room, let's say a British person, an Australian, and an American person, you know, like they all speak the same language, but it's totally different. You can tell away. So growing up in Argentina, especially for Argentinian Spanish, very different from the rest of the Spanish anywhere else. And the accent sounds a lot like Italian, right? So I had a mix, and I grew up in Mendoza, which is 1,000 km south from the capital. And the capital, everyone speaks with it. Let's say if I'm gonna say the color yellow, it's amarillo, but they'll say amarillo or lluvia. There's a sh sound with this. There's a double L. There's a double sound, and they only do that in right. So if you're from the interior, you don't speak that way. So for them, it's even more. But for me, like now, every time I play an Argentinian guy, which believe it or not, I've done it twice this last year, I take Argentinian accent with like the L's and how they speak in the capital, because that's the most people know internationally. If I speak with like from Mendoza, so when I got here, again, I was the Latino guy, meaning I'm Mexican. So that was a huge thing for me. Like I wouldn't land any work being Latino. I'm like, man, I'm Latino. I speak Spanish. It's like, what are you talking? I was like, yeah, well, it's Mexican, bro. You don't sound Mexican. And that was huge. There were years where I'm like, all right, I gotta learn Mexican. So, and then I became friends with like Mexican people. And one of my closest dear friends, Gigi Guerrero, amazing director. She's Mexican, grew up here in Canada, and we became friends. And now I have a lot of Mexican friends here. And then just hanging out with them, it just started. And eventually I was confident enough to one day in one audition, I tried to put the accent, and it worked. And since then, I was like, all right, I can do the Mexican accent. So I was good. I thought I was good. I don't need to worry about it anymore. Fast forward, how many years? I guess now you have to speak with a Spanish accent from Spain, right? Totally different. And depends where you're in Spain is how they speak. Like Spain, they have so many dialects and sounds. It's insane. Some of them you don't even know. I don't even know what there's a vast country. Like no clue. So it depends where you are. Is the accent, right? So this one they say just Castilian. So if you all right, it's an accent that just everyone can tell that it's from Spain. So definitely not like Catalan from Barcelona, which is where I was living, Catalan, and just your regular Spanish. So I wasn't aimed for Catalan first because I don't speak it. Second, it's just weird. So I ended up going for the regular Spanish, and living there, it was sticking with me. The more time you spend living in a place, the accents are sticking, right? So when I lived I spent a lot of time in Mexico, the Mexican comes to come in. I lived in Spain, the accent will stick, and I was sort of saying, like, things that they'll say that my family would make fun of me every time I would go in, and they're like, man, you're speaking like Spanish. Like Spaniard, right?
So could you give us, so we can, like, for people in the chat who wouldn't be familiar with this, can you give us like a couple of like wordage examples that you would say in your Argentina dialect, and that someone like Salazar would say, like a couple of words that you could say?
Right. So I mean, from Argentina, for example, would be like, ¿qué me estás diciendo, boludo? Ayer yo me fui y no me llamaste. So that's Argentinian. Then you go to Spain, and you guys putting me on the spot here. Spain, they have almost like a lisp, right? So I would say Marcio is more like Marcio. Es que yo no sabía, pero después llámame más tarde y nos juntamos a tomar un café. That's Spanish from Spain. Totally different from the Argentinian, right? And then you go your Mexican. I'm gonna try to do the Mexican now. They're gonna make fun of me later today. I know. So Mexican. Let's see. What can I say? I'm blank, guys. Give me something. Give me a line. Give me a line or something. What can I say in Mexican?
Go on, babe.
Maybe just como te llamas.
Ah, okay. ¿Cómo te llamas? ¿Cómo te llamas? It's like it's very neutral. They don't really have ups and down. I mean, I just don't want, because first thing is coming to my mind is swearing Mexican, And it's like, because that's what they do. That's what we do.
So in summary, like, let's call it like, I don't want to say actual Spanish because that's rude, but like native Spanish, I guess. It's like like an almost lisp, like, como estás, it's like the lisp is really, really pronounced. Whereas
so in the game it's like pulgar. I will say pulgarcito, but in the game it's pulgarcito.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So every time there's a C, the lisp coming, right? So they call me Marcio. I'm like, all right, that's. So yeah, it's totally different. Like, I wish I could do that in English. That's the goal, right? To be able to speak different with them. But at least I have it down in Spanish for the most part, for like the main ones that they usually call me for. Argentina, Chilean, I can do Mexican, and now I can do Castilian from Spain. Obviously, on the spot and live, I'm like, but if you gave me 5 minutes with the paper, I promise you, I'll nail it.
But even as a non-native, I've always, and this is again probably outside of the scope of the podcast, but I've always been impressed with non-native English speakers. The way that you can unconsciously speak English without having to think about it.
I mean,
it's always been fascinating
behind that, because I remember, I don't know if you guys speak a second language, but when I was learning English, it was a headache. I hated it. There were tears, and when I got here in the country, I could understand, but I wasn't fluent at all. And I started school, and I remember tried to imagine going to an acting school where the thing is talk, and I can't. I'm sitting there trying to communicate, like choppy as hell. I can't say anything. But then the fascinating thing is when you start dreaming in the other language. And I remember it like vividly, like my dreams where I'm like, in the dream, I can speak perfect English. And it was the best. I had the best dreams. I would go speaking English. Then I'll wake up and I'm like, oh yeah, that was a dream. So yeah, you start developing that, right? You start like dreaming. The first thing you start understanding, and then from there, the more, I actually taught myself English just from a dictionary, because my goal always had a vision to act in English. That was my vision. So when I was back in South America, I was in Argentina. When I was 18, I moved to Chile. A buddy of mine was working as a model. The man is locally, and I did like modeling work. I worked for like Hugo Boss. I did a lot of stuff like that. I ended up working in a few soap operas as double from some actors here and there, nothing huge. And then when I came here, before going to Europe, I decided I need to learn English. So all I had was a dictionary. So every day I was reading the dictionary and learning some words. So when I got to Europe, I was just hanging out with people that couldn't. So I literally say I did this to my Latino friends. I'm like, I don't want to be friends with any of you guys. Just American. And that's all I did. But I mean, really, it helped me a ton, because I was hanging out with people, English speakers. So I was hearing all the time. In Spain, I was learning, and then I was dating this girl from Canada. So my ears started developing, and yeah, it made it a lot easier the transition. So I could say a few words here and there, but I could understand, so I didn't feel lost. So when I got here, it was just a matter of time for me to be like, start speaking. The one thing I have to give to you guys and like English speaking people that usually go to our countries is, when you go there and your goal is to learn Spanish, you guys don't care. You go there and you just like blah, 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 and you sound ridiculous. It sounds terrible, but you're not embarrassed and you don't care, and you go for it. And a month later, you're speaking Spanish. And I'm like, what? And then me, that being this perfectionist idiot, pardon my language, I don't want to say anything unless it's perfect. And I'm like, well, how are you gonna do that if you don't know the language? So a lot of the times I wouldn't say anything. I'll be quiet because I was embarrassed to say anything because it was gonna sound silly.
Oh yeah, it's really difficult.
Yeah,
I mean,
the moral
like,
of the story, don't be ashamed. Just the sooner you open your mouth and speak, you're learning, right?
I struggle with that too. Like for me, it was the opposite because my parents would want me to speak their mother tongue, which is an Indian language, and they would start to speak to me. And I sort of like developed both of them as my first language, and then quickly after going to school here, English took over as a dominant language, and I would have like
Right.
mixed dreams of them like speaking to me in that language, but me responding in English, every sort of like combination of it, and until it sort of became very clear that English was going to become like my dominant language.
Right.
And that's always a struggle too, to like try to speak that back to them even when they want it, because it's like
Yeah.
I understand what they're saying, but like to actively maintain like a conversation with them in that same language, that's like the next
Man,
step. It's very difficult.
100%. That was the
Yeah.
story for me with my ex when I met her in Spain. She's Canadian, but we met and was speaking Spanish. Then when we moved here, I wanted to learn English. She wanted to learn Spanish, and she wanted me to talk to her in Spanish. Actually, sorry, I met her. We were trying to communicate, but then she wanted the opposite, for me to switch to Spanish, and I just couldn't. I
Mm.
just couldn't talk to her because my brain is like, why am I talking to you in Spanish when I'm so used to talk to you in English? It's hard. It can be really hard. I know exactly what you're
Yeah.
saying.
So does that? So when you think about stuff, your inside voice is it Spanish or is it English now?
No, now it's English. Yeah,
Okay.
That's fascinating.
But the one thing I still do in Spanish sometimes is counting,
Mm.
like numbers. They will come to me in
Yeah.
Spanish. But yeah, because in English, I don't know, for some reason I get to like, and then it gets blurry. Something happens, and then I'm fine. So usually for numbers, like super quick Spanish. Go figure.
No, as I said, it is. I always find, because English has always been, I guess it's the business language, the trading language of the world. I almost find traditional English countries will, I suppose ignorant might be a strong term, but they're not as open to learn new languages because they know that wherever they
can
go,
speak it everywhere. Yeah.
and that's can be a little bit of a detriment because I mean, look at what you're reeling off: Chile, Argentina, Mexico, Spain, all of these. I was in Dominican Republic for my honeymoon. All speak
I
Spanish,
mean, on that note, I could literally say, hey, there's more people speaking Spanish or Mandarin than English, bro. So if that was the case, I
Exactly.
can just speak my own language. You know what I mean? But it doesn't work that way. And I still get self-conscious about my English. If you give me a script on the spot, 99% of the time, there are words in there that I never seen. Or I don't know the pronunciation. I have to like listen to. So when I get my auditions, I need to figure out the pronunciation, the meaning, and then I'll start working. Same thing when I go to class, we do a play, and they put me on the spot right away. Call, read, Marcy, go up there and read the scene. It was embarrassing, I'll be honest. I will say something and they go, and I was like, don't laugh, guys, don't laugh. And I said, Marcy, no, you say like this. The other day I did a stream with Nicole, and I have to read the Salazar stuff on the screen, and fair enough, I was stopping every 2 minutes. So what is that? How do you say? Yeah, okay. And I still did. Just deal with it. It's your reality. It's like, you know what? Be better. Learn. And then you don't have to deal with it. It's the only way I'm gonna learn, just to like keep doing it, right? But yeah, it's
Yeah.
just do it.
I see it all over. There's a lot of resources now. People that are fans of this community, even they'll use unorthodox, maybe orthodox actually, I don't know, because again, I haven't spent as much time picking up another language as like a sort of more another second dominant language as you. But I've seen people read books in English, listen to audiobooks, listen to people just pronounce certain things and stories that they love, even Resident Evil included. And they'll be like, oh, this is helping with my English. And we'll be like, oh, we had no idea, but this is like one of the ways that people will consume their favorite stories and also practice another language at the same time. And that's pretty beautiful. And kind of building off of what Andy was saying about English being the business or trading language of the world, um, it's really fascinating that looking into all these other cultures, the depth of their stories, their folklore, their myths is really universally It's very compelling. You look at every region of the world, virtually every region of the world, they all have a version of the Pulgarcito myth. They all have a dwarf myth. And it's really fascinating with Salazar. They have Tom Thumb, Little Thumb. You have Isun Boshi in Japan, Little 1 inch. And he actually, they all actually have the same fundamental structure of a dwarf being swallowed up by some gigantic beast, a fish, or it could be an ogre, it could be an oni in Japan. And then it's really fascinating. In many variants of Pulgarcito, it's often like a big fish or a wolf or a giant.
Yeah.
And he always has that courage to burst free, to extricate himself from the jaws of said beast. But in the case of Resident Evil 4, Ramon is a sort of corruption of that heroism. He doesn't have that desire anymore. He just wants to absolutely alleviate himself for good of his small stature and his frail, ailing, illness-ridden body, and he wants that forever. So he's susceptible to that manipulation, and that's why, you know, this version of that character, this variant of the character, who again exists basically everywhere around the world, we now have a variant of the character voiced by you that actually is a very he's a very tragic corruption of what would be that hero. He sort of
Yeah.
succumbs to his insecurities instead of overcoming them. And I think that's really beautiful because there's not quite any other story or medium that we've seen that been done before, and that's really beautiful. So it's something that you've contributed so much thematic depth to in this story. And people have all sorts of good sentiments towards the old Salazar. I do as well. But the amount of nuance, the amount of emotional tumult and character writing that's really been written to the point of mastery here. I think that's something that has really elevated Salazar to like my favorite character, my favorite villain character, and my favorite character in this story because you now feel sympathy for him. You know, despite all of his attempts to escape his body, becoming this gigantic beast, he actually doesn't truly rid himself of those adolescent traumas. He's still feeling that, and you feel a little bit of sympathy. You almost want to cry for him because his entire life is framed by this issue, by these traumas.
Yeah. No, it's
It's
funny that
incredible.
you mentioned that because I even though I like to be the bad guys, when I read, the more I started digging deeper into his background and his life, the more I realized that he's not a bad guy, you know? And I never saw him as and that changed the whole perspective for me. I'm like, he's just misunderstood. He just wanted to be loved. He's lonely. He was betrayed. He lied to, and he got into this cult that is gonna change his life, and you saw what happened, right? But at heart, he was a nice young boy that it just got poisoned. You know what I mean? So that just going into from that direction, it literally changed everything for me. And yeah, it's pretty sad when you see the journey of him and knowing this it's hard for sure.
Oh yeah, that's why it's there's every flavor of villain in this entry, and you see them put next to each other and compared and contrasted. You see Sadler, you see Krauser, and then you look at Ramon, and you wonder like, is this really the villain? Do we really want to hate him, or do we want to feel sorry? And I think that's just there's just so many iterations of what could be a villain and sort of shadows of the villain. And Ramon is just he's so special for that reason. He's someone that is evocative in a different way that Luis and Sadler and all of the other characters they just can't be. It's so special. It's very unique.
Yeah. And you know what? And I think if he looked a little nicer looking, less scary, it will even more. I think maybe people will feel for the guy. But you know, they fixed that in a way that he looks scary, creepy, not pleasant to look at. And so yeah, you just want to kill the guy. But then when you know, then you start getting everything else, all the layers and everything else going on within the story, and something else happens, right? It's, oh, okay. I mean, he looks like that, but you know, he's not. Maybe you know, maybe you should give it a chance, or maybe I should just throw an egg and kill him.
We got to stay away from those eggs. Dangerous, very dangerous.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it is the sympathetic villain, isn't it? And you are right in what you said, Beggy, where Resident Evil 4 has such like deep layered. It's really impressive actually that they crammed this many villains in, and they're not just like all one-dimensional villains. You know, there is, and with particular regard to Salazar, you have that layered. Well, actually, you know, he's not a bad chap. It's just, you know, it's a wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah, and there's so much resources and back that it's amazing for an actor to have that kind of information. Even for the audition, they were super vague enough that I needed to know to come up with something. You know what I mean? And then once I got the role, all this information, it was available, and I was like, oh my god, so juicy, so much to like feed from, you know. And you don't get that all the time, you know. You read a movie script, they give you a summary like this, and it's you know, basic, and it's up to the actor to create the background, go deeper, and you know what kind of dad was his mom around, was his big, like, you come up with all this backstory because you need it, you know. But in this case, everything was available, so it's,
Oh yeah.
I'm very lucky in that. I think without it, it would be a whole different Ramon.
So on that note, then, and feel free to answer this however you see fit, because it is I am kind of putting you on the spot with this question. Is there anything you felt you would have liked to explore more with the Salazar character?
I mean, yeah, I would. First of all, I would have loved to just play a little bit more with the character in general. But I would have loved to explore a little bit more his own personal life, like his family side of things. You know, even though everything is explained in a way, but there was a lot of people working for him. And it speaks really nice of him. So he turned into something else, and everything got loose. But I would have loved to see more of that side of Ramon, to see his back. As I said it on the streaming, I would love a spin-off. I think there is so much material and opportunity to make something unique, and that I think about to know more about where he came from, how he got there, where he's going to, and I would, that would be a dream thing to do for me. And I don't think you get the chance to see much of that in the game. You see it in a way that you read it, but you don't. So I would definitely love to expand on that.
Oh yeah.
Maybe about
There is so much
his
potential.
first girlfriend, his first love. Maybe he was one of the mates, you know, like that kind of stuff, like something personal of him is in the game interacting with the other players, you know, so you can relate more to, like, oh man, that players is more than his back misunderstood. I think there is a lot of room to do something bigger for him.
Or even like a short film anime type deal, you know, where you can like there's like offshoots of the main story which really goes into how he became Salazar, because he is such a phenom in Resident Evil. He's such an interesting character.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm gonna put this in the universe right now. Someone in the universe, someone out there listening to this, that would be a great idea if we to do it, do some sort of short film. But it needs to be told. The story of this guy, it needs to be told, and everyone needs to see it. So I'm putting it out there, and hopefully it comes true.
Well, we'll see what we can do.
There you go.
Indeed. We're going to briefly move on to some members' questions. Remember, guys, if you are part of the Residents of Evil YouTube membership, we normally put a post out before these podcasts if you want to ask a specific question. Indeed, as well as the super chats and the resubmissions that we get during the stream. Some of these you might have answered, so I'll try and dish through them as quick as I can here. So Seth Liller, thank you, Seth, for your question. He says, Marcio, overall, what was your favorite part in making your part of Resident Evil 4?
Favorite part? I'll have the last scene with Leon coming in, Krauser is taking Ashley, and I turn around. The whole last scene before. I think favorite one, just because to be these, be the explore another side of Salazar that I have, and I had a lot of fun with it. And just this thing they built for us, it was super fun, and yeah, I really.
Thank you for your question there, Seth. We're just going to load up the second question here. This is from Resident Evil Player 877. Thank you for your question. He says, what was the funniest thing that happened whilst you were shooting Resident Evil 4?
Funniest thing. I think to me, it was when they asked me to do the sisters. Really, that was hilarious. Even as Steve looked at them, looked at me, you want Marcy to do a female for this? So to me, that was the most hilarious. And it got even worse when they said that I sounded like that. That was the funniest thing for me that happened in the set. I was totally not expecting. So yeah, I think that would be the one.
I wouldn't be surprised though if that was the finished take. Very guttural, raw, raucous voices. You don't know what's coming out. If you hear it and you don't see the actual model, it's
yeah,
you wonder,
know, right?
yeah, it's questionable.
Just going through here. Yes, we've answered. Yvette Aguirre says, hi, Marcio, besides playing Salazar, who else did you play? If you could just very briefly re-explain the characters that you did play through motion capture.
I did Ramon, Salvador, all the Gigantes, Vertigo, and maybe the girls, maybe the sisters.
Yeah, I suppose it all depends on what take, if they did end up using your take.
Yeah, and it was mainly the FADR, like their face and that kind of stuff, right? So who knows if they made it.
So this was actually from Yvette as well. Besides, actually, we've done that section. Which character did you find the most challenging to motion capture out of that array of characters that you've detailed?
I mean, I have to say Ramon, just because it was a very interesting, hard, difficult character. So I have, but then if I can give you a second one, it was the Ganados. Every other character, they have their movements, and that's how they moved, and then that was it. The Ganados, they have different kinds of Ganados, right? So depending what they're doing is what you have to do, which is like four. Literally, he did 2 steps, and then but then would land with his left leg. Like I still remember. And then the other guys were the opposite. The guy with the torch, it was different, and the guy with an axe, it was. And then some of them had heads, some of them were down, some of them it was just like they would just throw him in different kinds of ganados. Yeah, you have to point.
That's wild. And did you have to get into that mindset of, there's going to be a plaga erupting from my neck, and I have to shake before it happens, and I have to spasm? All of that?
I mean, there were times where they even tied a neck just to be able to do this, and I would just go wild on those things. And yeah, there were a lot of fun moments just being the ganado. A lot of time also when I wasn't doing Ramon, doing ganados, doing vertigos, carrying Ashley around the set, right? So it was fun. Super fun.
Yeah, and I'm sure also different degrees of being hunched over, like a hunchback for certain ganados.
Oh yeah. The head holder, their vertigos are so tall, and the way they don't do, they just walk like flat. So I have to like that and make it heavy, and then you have these hands coming out. So yeah, it was.
Right.
I was. Let's put it this way: I was never bored. Everything was exciting. I was a little kid in the candy shop. It was awesome.
That sounds fun. Yeah.
Beautiful. Remember, guys, we will be covering super chats, super chat questions after the member questions. So if you do have a question for Marcio within the sort of next 10 to 15 minutes, we'll definitely try our best to get them answered. But we had another question here from Rose Imagine One, who says, I enjoyed your character very much, Marcio. What was your favorite Salazar line? This is a two-part question. We'll start with that. What was your favorite Salazar line?
The intercom one.
Okay.
You know the line? Do I have?
Is it the one where you're actually making your way towards
salutations, Mr. Kennedy. Are you ready with the girl? That one. Love it.
Oh my gosh.
It's just such a like out there line, you know. He's just totally teasing them and making fun and being this. That's his childish moment, right? It's like, yes, can't see me, I'm far away, and just gonna tease you. Love it. It was an awesome line.
And the second part of the question was any of the lines that were in the final product was any of them ad-libbed? So did you interpret what the script said and ad-lib any of them?
Oh yeah, hundreds of them. We spent a lot of time in the booth doing, especially. I don't know if I'm allowed to do it. I mean,
well, then say it.
We have to do a lot of. I guess I can't. This technically, I'm not spoiling anything. Just how we did the work. So, obviously, when I'm a monster, I suit to be a monster, really. So I have to do all those lines ADR. So you're in your booth and literally for a lot of the characters. And I had a book like this, you know, 1 million pages, and you just like go line by line with the lines as you go. First as Ramon, the second one as you get a little bit angry, and the third one as a monster. And you gotta give them like 3 of each. So imagine 9 different lines of. Yeah, good times. It was fun.
Sounds arduous.
I suppose at the very least, I know you mentioned earlier, you was like, you don't necessarily get the transition. It isn't always viable getting the transition from voice acting and motion capping to acting, but at least from like a memory point of view, like it must be totally wholesome and beautiful that you shared this very unique experience to one of the biggest games ever made, to be honest.
Oh yeah, I still don't believe it. Like my family, my younger brother, he's a fan. His son is a fan. I have a classmate from high schools are fans. Like friends that I haven't talked to and like ever. They message me, man, what you in this? This is it. I just got people there, this game, and people that I haven't seen or talk in so many years, and it's mind blowing. It's you know, because the games come out, you know, there's a lot of Resident Evil games, but for some reason I was talking about this with another really great voice actor here in town, and I remember telling him, I said, look, I haven't done a lot of games, but I said, man, you're just lucky, dude. You haven't done many, and the one that you do is Resident Evil 4.
You did the one.
Look at this. He's like, I've done so many, and none of them are like in the caliber of this game. So I'm like, yeah, I'm totally blessed, and I'm lucky. I'm saying lucky because I am lucky, but also I have to give it to me. Like I put the work. Like I have to do. I did my auditions, and I got it because I believe I deserved it, and super lucky.
No, that is glorious. And actually, if we take this a step further, we've been talking about accents. We've been talking about even interlanguage accents, how different things can be. Don't you think it's wholesome that a Japanese game is shot in Canada, but is set in Spain?
Yeah.
Like what an absolute! Talk about culture breaking gaming. Really, it's unbelievable. Actually, unbelievable when you sit down and think, "Wow, that's incredible." The diversity involved in these projects are ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it's insane. And what were the chances that I was here? You know, what were the chances that I spent years in Spain and, you know, 10, 14 years later, it was gonna come back to me and it was gonna help me land this role. You know what I mean? And the craziest thing is, they were never gonna shoot this in Vancouver. They were gonna shoot it in the U.S. The only reason why they shot it here was a COVID. They stay
Yes.
here. So it's
I
like
remember
lived
Nick
in
talking
Spain,
about that as
I
well.
came here, and then they shot it here because of COVID. And it was, and the more I think about it, it was just meant to be. I needed to be Ramon Salazar.
Oh yeah, the stop in
I-
Spain, the changing of the shooting location to Vancouver, all the stars aligned.
Yeah,
It's time, yeah.
yeah, it's kind of freaky, but yeah, it's,
You think you might have someone upstairs looking out for you?
yeah, I think so.
Okay, so that's pretty much it. There are a couple of other questions in there which we did cover quite broadly throughout. So thank you so much to JJ. JJ, that's not the JJ, but JJ2X417, WP Blue, Nick Boaz, K82 Spain, Seth Lilla, Nick Boaz, Rose Imagine, and Yvette Aguirre for all your questions there. That is really appreciated. We're going to move on to the super chat part of the podcast now. So get your super chats in. We're going to run through some quick fire questions with Marcio here. So from the top, if we just scroll up here. We've got one coming in, the £2 super chat from Hannah Gates, who says, what do you think of Ramon's hobbies?
Oh, definitely bird watching. He loves to watch birds, eat popcorn, and swim in those pools in the castle, you know, the black water ones. That's it. That's his daily routine.
Sounds fun.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Hannah. And I think Hannah's got another one here. What do you think Ramon's favorite color is?
Red.
What makes you say that?
Oh man, color of blood. He just loves. It's a deep color, right? He can relate to it. It's related to pain, to love.
It's related to power.
Is there power?
His penchant for inflicting violence on maids and servants since young, you know, that is illustrated through blood. When he sees that, he's like, I have the power, I'm in control. No one's messing with me right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to go with red.
Glorious. Thank you very much for that, Hannah. And Hannah coming in again. She just wants to ask you all these questions. There's not really a lot we can do.
All right.
He says, what's Ramon's favorite food and drink?
Oh, well, I'm going to say definitely red wine. He loves a nice full body red. And then for food, I was a rare steak. On the blue side. Maybe Chicago every now and then. Blue most of the time.
No, they're the best steaks, I'm told. They're the best.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ron, joining the Row Squad recruit. That's really appreciated. Thank you for supporting the Residents of Evil today and coming in with a super chat here, $20 super chat. It's a big boy one, so we'll try and go through this as best we can. Do you see Ramon as Osman's adopted son? We'll start off with that.
I mean, I see him as my kind of dad. Yeah, so I guess so. Yeah. He was there for me when I needed it. So yes.
And what are your thoughts about the intertwined family law? Becky, could you like
elaborate on that?
Interpret that. Yeah, interpret what.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of added lore in this entry with the Salazar family chronology. So all of the Salazars, him being the 8th and the 7 before him being the sort of the establishers of peace for the realm, and his father is the 7th. His name is Diego, and so Osmond showed up at a time, and he was written in the files as the devil, right? The devil bringing the gift to cure Ramon when no one could. So I'm assuming Ron is looking to get your thoughts on sort of the relationship between Osmond and Ramon, the sort of gift that he offers him, and maybe any thoughts on Ramon and his biological father, whose name is Diego. And a little detail, there's actually, if you... Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think he lost his father at very young, and his whole family. He was just looking for love and companionship and just to be loved, which is why I think he got so close to the people working for him. And then the whole village was affected, and I think overall his intention was to bring everyone together and bring wealth and peace and to the village where he was living. When Sadler showed up and he sold him on this idea that this was going to change everything, not only was going to help him accomplish that, it was going to give him strength and be what he always wanted to be. And then we also was betrayed and lied to, and I don't think he saw it until not even at the end, because even in I think even at the end he still believes that Sadler's it was always there for me, and what he did was the best thing that could happen to him.
Still deluded, right?
Still deluded, yeah. So I think he has some daddy issues. Let's put it that way.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Ron, for that. The $20 super chat. Thank you for supporting the Residents of Evil today. There's actually, this isn't a super chat, but I just see the comment pop up. Dadler.
Dadler. Osmond Dadler.
Dadler, I love
Indeed.
it.
Indeed. Anna actually did come in with a 50 Swedish krona super chat. Thank you very much for that. I drew the Salazar pool party scene and posted it online, just saying thank you for your work. We'll have to we'll have to have a gander at that. We'll make sure Marcio gets that. Thank you very much, Anna, for supporting the Residents of Evil today. Hannah asking all these big questions here. Coming in with the 20 Great British Pounds, the best currency, of course, with a 20 Great British Pounds super chat. I once said that Ramon would buy his makeup from the merchant. What else do you think Ramon likes to buy from him? What are the essentials?
His socks. Yes.
Oh.
Might have
And
lost
freeze.
connection, possibly.
You're still here, aren't you?
I am.
Oh, cool. I was like, because you was very, very still.
Okay.
I'll get him to come back in. Hang on.
Okay, sure.
But yeah, this is the Q&A part of the stream now, guys. So if you've got any super chats you want to get in with Mr. Moreno, aka Ramon Salazar, now is the time to do it. He has froze. We'll just pop him off the screen. Pop him off the screen there. Thank you very much, Hannah, for that. We will just get him back in. Let me see if we can.
It's a banger question.
Oh, here he is.
I love that question.
Hi,
we
guys.
lost you for a second.
Hello.
So this is what happened. My phone overheated.
Oh no!
It says it needs to cool down because these questions are on fire.
Oh,
It's about 5 minutes to cool down, I think. So I figure hopefully you guys can hear me here.
Yeah,
we can.
We'll give it a few minutes to the phone to chill.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we've probably got 10 or so minutes left anyway, so it should be okay. So you mentioned socks. He'd buy socks.
Socks. Yes, 100% cotton, up to the knees. So and they literally white. They're all white, and so he gets that from him, and handkerchiefs. He loves to have his handkerchiefs on his pocket. So those are the main two things that he goes and buy.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Hannah did actually post one earlier, which I did forget to pick up on. So the £2 super chat. Do you think Ramon has any friends in his life?
I think so. I think he has a secret pet that we haven't seen. That is hiding in his chambers. I want to say it's a cat. I want to say it's a cat. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but I'm pretty sure he has some cat somewhere in the castle that we haven't seen.
I can see it.
Thank you very much, Hannah. You might want to come in on this one after Marcio's Marcio's statement here, but this is Hannah again with the £5. Who do you think killed Ramon's father? Sadler or Ramon himself?
Am I going?
Yeah. We'll do your question and then Beggy can chime in.
I think Ramon did.
And your what's your evidence, sir?
His behavior. I don't think I'm. It's a tricky one. I'm just going with it because I figure it's more fun. But honestly, Sadler could very well kill him, and then all of a sudden show up in his life like nothing happened. So yeah, let me change it. It was Sadler. He had this whole thing planned. He wanted to come up with his plan, and he just needed this guy gone so he can take care of Ramon. He knew that he could be the father figure and trick him and to do what he wanted. So I'm gonna say Sadler.
Did you want to chime in on that, Beggy?
Yeah, sure. I agree. There are a couple of dialogue lines I remember that actually hint towards him obviously despising his father, calling him a very sickly, worthless, valueless man, something along those lines. And along with that, with Sadler orchestrating this whole ordeal, he wants to remove that influence entirely. He wants to come in as the savior and essentially present this opportunity with Las Plagas as the way to transcend his body that he despises. And it's very much implied that Diego Salazar, he makes Ramon hurt from that. He inflicts that sort of emotional damage, and that he may have been emotionally abusive. And there's actually a knife in his portrait as well. If you go to the courtroom, or rather, not courtroom, the throne room, where you actually see the Salazar lineage, there is a knife stuck in Diego's painting. And so there's that resentment there's that hatred, but the one that actually seals the deal and actually moves in to kill Diego, I believe it was Sadler.
Mm-hmm.
If you had asked me, yeah.
Excellent as always, Beggy.
Thank you.
Hannah coming in with a £5 super chat. Thank you very much. Is Ramon an animal lover? Does he prefer cats or dogs? Well, you did have a little bit of Jen earlier about a potential cat in the castle. I mean, could you elaborate on that a little bit more?
I mean, yes, between cats and dogs, I think he's a cat guy. You know, cats are independent. Then they don't need people all the time, and I think he just can relate to that. And they're good with mice and most likely with chickens. You know, get rid of these chickens around the castle. So definitely, I'm gonna say cat.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Marcio. And thank you to everyone who submitted the super chats there. It is really appreciated. Is there anything, Marcio, you want to tell the people? A message?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, guys. Thank you for, when images were leaked about the new Ramon, his look, and even in the first trailer, you can only hear him maybe once say one thing. And I may or may not gone online and see what people were thinking. And I was a little scared, because as I said before, there is big shoes to. It's a big shadow coming after Rene, right? He did such an amazing job with the original, and the OG is amazing. So I was scared. Obviously, there's always people that they're gonna hate you. There's always people gonna love you, and I was afraid. And I remember talking to Nick, and this was like a day or two before the game launched, and I was like, man, you've been here before. How do you feel? I'm kind of, once I realized the magnitude, I was like, I'm afraid, dude. You're gonna be fine. They're gonna love you. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, okay. And then the game comes out, and I see all these comments. But right away, people were talking about his appearance and all that. But then the more, I think it was once they got the opportunity to start playing the game and see the Ramon and hear Ramon, Yeah, it was very positive so far feedback, and yeah, thank you for welcoming me to the RE fams. Thank you for being so supportive and open minded to this guy. He came from Argentina, moved to Spain, ended up in Canada with an accent, and I just did everything that I could to do justice to this huge role. And so, yeah, I really, really appreciate you all. Thank you for your love and support. Always, thank you.
And I suppose last but not least, where can we find you online?
We can find me on Facebook, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm pretty new at Twitter. I opened it maybe a month ago just because I figured, Marcio, you're a grown up now. You have to open a Twitter account. So yeah, I'm sure you guys can facilitate those unless you need me to say it right now.
Is it so? It's at Is it at Marcio Moreno? Oh, no, it's Marcio A Moreno on Twitter. Is it?
On Twitter, yeah. It's my second name, Antonio. For those who don't know, that's why I wanted to be like Antonio.
It's cool. Extra Marcio lore.
Yeah.
We'll get the Instagram up as well. Marcio. Is it the same? Is it the same on?
No, it's Marcio Moreno official.
Oh.
Yeah.
Marcio Moreno. Oh yeah, I think you just want to get it in the chat for everyone. That's all. Marcio Moreno official. So that is the Instagram handle.
Instagram.
There we go. Lovely jubbly. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, Marcio. You've told your story here as eloquent as you could. You've been extremely generous with your time today, talking about one of the most iconic characters in Resident Evil. I'm really, really grateful. Beggy, is there anything you want to sign off on?
No, this has been wonderful. Thank you for sharing so much insight into your creative process, into your conception of the character from the beginning when you didn't know who he was to after. It's been really fascinating. And once again, I can't express how immensely you've contributed to this game's element of folk horror and creating that atmosphere with the Ganados, Verdugos, Gigantes, Ramon, all of that. It's just the whole entourage of what actually comprises this game's atmosphere and its alienation for the player. And it's also effective. There's so many characters in this game that actually exude these different energies, and the ones that you've actually done work on, I've felt the most spooked by, creeped out by, and even intrigued by. And Salazar, once again, is the most evocative character for me in particular. So I really can't express how much I appreciate your work on this. So thanks for spending some time with us.
Thank you. That's really nice of you to say. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time. You guys are awesome. This was super fun. And thank you, everyone watching, and for the questions. And I hope that I answered everything that you wanted to know. And yeah, maybe we'll see each other in the future again. But yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely, yeah. It'd be a pleasure to have you on again, maybe in a different capacity, like playing a game or something like that. I'm sure we can facilitate something. But thank you very much. Thank you to everyone in the chat for watching this episode of the Residents of Evil podcast. If you want to ask questions, we do facilitate that beforehand if you are a Residents of Evil member. So if you just go on the YouTube, we have various packages that you can subscribe to. But as part of that, we do ask your questions beforehand towards the voice actors that we do talk to. Of course, this podcast is brought to you by G Fuel. Make sure you use code ROE because you get 20% at checkout. I've been Andy. This has been Beggy. Thank you for watching the Residents of Evil podcast, and we will see you very, very soon.
Thank you, guys.